I'm sorry I haven't prepared a PowerPoint, but I think that our poster is beautifully not considered for the presentation. So, in a context of economic recession, universities have a stronger pressure in order to consider the competency profile of a business graduate as an issue very important in the design and commercialization of major curriculum. In this context, the European higher education area has also considered, that was implemented in the period between 2000 and 2010, has also considered that the competencies and the competency profile of a future graduate is a very important issue because it's the landmark, a dynamic landmark, where the graduates can be adapted to the labor and the social needs of the society in general. The stress of education for employability is particularly relevant in the case of business graduates, not only because these graduates has one of the highest rates of offers coming from the job market, but also because in a context of economic and financial crisis, where the companies needs to be reformulated and have new strategies to face to the challenges that the market are making to them, it seems that business graduates are the ones who have to play this transformating role. So under this context and in an environment where online education are giving more opportunities to people for being or for having more education, we have thought that that would be relevant to know what is the skills profiles of business graduates that may facilitate their employability and what is the perception of employer regarding the online business graduates. With this purpose, we prepare a survey with a list of 20 generic competences that was sent to the 3 different groups: students, graduates, and employers. The final version of the survey includes 3 different parts. The first one included 2 questions regarding the relevance of the 20 competences considered. The second one included 2 questions regarding the impact of online education in the acquisition of these competences. And the third part includes some demographic questions to capture information like gender, prior studies, and so on. The results are shown in the poster, and it would be explained in the future because I think that I have less than 10 seconds. No? Thank you very much.
Good morning to everyone. Well, I also didn't have time to prepare the slides, so I'm presenting this nice poster. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this research comes from a European project. Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So this research comes from a European project called ELearning, okay, whose goal is to overcome the lack of engagement in the learning process that is reported by students. Actually, students report on feeling quite disengaged and little motivated in the learning process because of, well, they find the material is quite challenging and attractive, that the learning system itself is limiting their actions and intentions, and eventually students feel quite isolated from their peers. Okay, so in order to work on these limitations, we propose a resource, a learning resource called Collaborative Complex Learning Resource, that is able to convert traditional discussion forums into a video format, animated video format, so that the students can observe how avatars discuss. Even they can watch and listen to avatars how they discuss. They can observe how the knowledge is constructed. Then we use or leverage this material to enrich it with some complex information like cognitive assessment, like quizzes and so on for self-evaluation, and we incorporate also emotional aspects in order to provide effective feedback. Okay. Well, this resource was validated and experimented at work with real students. And in general, students found this material quite interesting, useful, and easy to use. And especially because this material contributed to better understand the concepts and content of the discussion, and also for knowledge retention and construction. I think I'm done. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I leave with the poster.
Everyone, I'm going to talk to you about a research line we have at the ELearning Research Group, mainly about 3 European projects we've been participating that are Conceit, OER Test, and Oportunidad. Of course, the challenge of open educational resources is not only describing actual practices, but also forecasting potential scenarios of how they can contribute to education and learning, and also at the strategic level, how they can develop institutions around open educational resources. We have 2 main objectives. Is more elaboration of conceptual frameworks to explanatory frameworks about OER, not being reduced only to a piece of content that is delivered online for free, and also develop a set of mechanisms and support instruments for the OER adoptions to help different agents within institutions. We applied also, applied research, answered in real situations. Maybe the most important part is about results. In one of the projects we've been involved, we developed a set of OER-based learning scenarios for accreditations. These 8 different scenarios provide different ways of accrediting learning based on OER. And this is at the level of the institutional level. At the student level, we've been participating in a project around OER together with the notion of learner-generated context. So we provided a quality framework that supports the process of creation, co-creation with the students' open educational resources through a process of validation, evaluation also of these resources for reuse and repurpose. And maybe mention also the other agent we target, that is faculty at senior level and faculty level. It's the Oportunidad project. This Oportunidad project is carried out with 4 institutions in Europe and 8 institutions in Latin America, and we are impacting around 78 different higher education institutions in Latin America. We developed a participatory OER agenda for Latin America. We developed more than 50 what we call roadmaps that are instantiations of this generic agenda into actual concrete roadmaps for institutions according to their mission level, constraints and everything. And we also developed for that, targeting faculty that set the training, a training course of around 80 hours that were taken by more than 130 higher education faculty within Latin America. So as you see, this is a synergistic approach in the line, and it's just mentioning that we are targeting MOOC now at this moment, and we can say that if we go back to the work we've done with the scenarios, we can trace MOOCs within those scenarios also. So it's productive, it's synergetic, and we build on the results from one or the other. So thank you very much.
This is based on my thesis project, which I defended on 4th December, and it's called Technology Enhanced Assessment for Skill and Knowledge Acquisition in Online Education. My thesis supervisors are Dr. Maria Antonia Vargas and Dr. Enrique Mopera. And Technology Enhanced Assessment is the continuous electronic assessment process where information and communication technology is used for the presentation of assessment activities and the recording of responses. It is also known as e-assessment or online assessment. And the system also supported teachers as well, and it provided teachers with added functionalities such as progress bar, competency-based assessment, and outcome-based assessment. And as future work, we are going to carry out assessment analysis, that is the analysis of students' activities in relation to the process of e-assessment. There will be analyzing feedback based on interactivity, engagement, and personalization of feedback and activities. And this is the results based on the Technology Enhanced Assessment system, and it shows that the proposed system supported student learning process of skill and knowledge in terms of student performance. At the same time, practicing with the proposed formative assessment model has enhanced the students' learning process as well. And through this system, we identified that students were constantly engaged in the system for both practice and assessment facilities. And based on the questionnaire data, students were satisfied with the learning experience, support, and facilities provided by the system and the model. And it also was possible for teachers to track the student learning process throughout the whole course with the modules such as progress bar, competency-based assessment, outcomes, grades, and statistics. As the results of assessment analytics, so far with the data that we have, we found out that through the facilitation of constructive feedback, it increased the engagement of the students in the classroom. And in the future, we are going to develop a framework for assessment analytics, and which can also be used in MOOCs as well. Thank you, and if you have any questions, you can ask me during the poster session.
Hello. Well, some people like thinking about the future. They spend time making plans for tomorrow, for 5 or 10 years. Some other people like enjoying the present. They are engaged in social activities and they like instant rewards. And some other people just think about the past. They love the things, the way things used to be. Well, this is called time perspective. And there are 5 different factors that constitute this psychological variable. Well, you may be wondering, what does time perspective have to do with learning? Well, it has been studied that future-oriented students tend to engage and they are more motivated in on-site learning scenarios. Well, they have higher performances. But in our study, we aim to research what happens with present and with past-orientated people. Now we are analyzing data, and we have seen that these 5 different factors, we have found that students in UOC right now, they have past negativism. They are oriented to the past, but they think in a negative way. And also they have present fatalism. We are now conducting some semi-structured interviews just to know if this could be because of the context, of the social context in the country. And furthermore, related to learning, we have studied this in a game activity. Why? Well, because as I said, future-oriented people tend to engage more in education, but in on-site. Not student-centered methodologies. Then we have implemented this game to see if present and past individuals also engage and have better grades in this kind of activities. Why? Well, because we think that our study could be very useful for helping these different kind of students, not only future-oriented, but present and past, to better engage in learning if we implement in the curriculum some games, some active tasks that could help them. So if you are more interested in time perspective, I can explain you more in the poster. Thank you very much.
Hi to everybody. Feedback in a virtual learning environment is said to be very important. So with our work we tried to analyze this importance. We have 2 main objectives. One is to analyze the importance of that virtual students give to personalized feedback, and the other one is the usefulness that online students think that personalized feedback should have. To this end, we analyze the impact that of providing personalized feedback to students' continuous evaluation, students' continuous assessment activities using different multimedia tools such as screenshots, video, text, etc. The provided feedback recommended contents, provide some guidelines and strategies to improve the activity submitted. The results of our study. The results of our study show that a great part of the students give very high importance of receiving personalized feedback from the teacher, and they consider it is of more relevance in an online environment than in a face-to-face environment. And the usefulness of personalized feedback perceived by students can be subsumed or divided into great dimensions. One, the one that facilitates the learning process, and the motivational one. And this latter becomes a key element to improve the student satisfaction with the learning process itself. The methodology used was to conduct a survey among the students of business administration degrees, and to analyze the data, factor analysis have been implemented.
So I don't know if you have any questions, you can visit us at the poster. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, as you know, design is a discipline used in many different fields, and recently it has also begun to be used in social sciences. If we understand design as something that can help us to find new and more creative solutions to problems and to devise new conditions that improve the given ones, then we think it might also be useful in education. Sorry. So in the Design to Learn project, we intend to apply this design knowledge to the creation of new learning scenarios that afford better conditions for learning in higher education and that are more engaging for both teachers and students. As is usual in the design approach, we use a participatory and collaborative methodology, and that is not user-centered but student-centered in this case. And this co-design methodology involves the research team and students and researchers in the development of these new learning scenarios. In 8 subjects, in 8 different subjects, in different areas of knowledge in 2 different universities. The co-design method is embedded in a design-based research methodology. In this figure you can see the different stages of the process, which is iterative, and it means that it is based on theory. It allows us to improve the design, and it's based on theory, but it also builds on theory.
Have you ever wondered if somebody is taking the identity of your students, and if your students are the authentic author of their works? Can you demonstrate it to a third parties? I am thinking about certification and quality agencies, and I am thinking about society in general. Please. Thank you. In other words, is it possible to measure the students' trust level? We are working on it, and we have defined this trust on 3 main factors: as validation of identity, authorship of security, and presence of these students on the community. Valid card is the visible face of this project, of a very complex computer system, and also is a tool, a personal tool of student that they have to active at the beginning of his academic life, taking some biometric data and activating his personal certificate, digital personal certificate. How does it work? Valid card is a recipient that collects some data related to 3 main factors, and this by means of several tools such as identity, such as face recognition systems, such as typing recognition systems, and using digital certificates, and all integrate with the learning and evaluation activity of the students along his activity and in the university. We know we are working on the definition of the metaphor that will represent valid card. And we are working on a first pilot test with subjects of multimedia and computer science studies, and we are preparing the second pilot with open with subject of the university. It's also a multidisciplinary team and composed by researchers, staff management. Okay, thank you very much.
We can see that graduation rates are normally much lower in distance learning institutions than in brick and mortar ones, and UOC wouldn't be an exception. Anyway, the difficulty of finding a good definition of dropout appears when there is not a formal declaration of death of our students when they take a long rest. As much we can say from an institutional point of view that our students are sleeping in some way. Maybe for this reason, a standard definition of dropout seems not to exist for distance higher education institutions. With Julia, we have worked out the definition of dropout that takes into account the long periods of breaks of UOC bachelor students, doing an empirical analysis of enrollment data. In a few words, we can say that a sleeping student is really a dropout student when she has a probability lower than 5% of coming back to the same degree after several consecutive semesters of break. Applying the definitions of dropout, it results that the general attrition level for the pre-Bologna bachelor degrees is more than a half of total students, and importantly, up to a quarter of total students if we talk about second semester dropout. Generally, these dropout ratios would seem to persist for Bologna bachelors. We put our focus of research on early dropout, specifically the second semester dropout. We are really concerned about this clash that seems to exist with the new students. They are selected students, they have entry requirements, and this is very important to take into account. Our initial research shows, for example, that on one hand, half of the students that didn't re-enroll the second semester didn't have a learning experience, and on the other hand, that 30% of these not re-enrolled students expressed their intention to continue studying Sunday, although only 10% did effectively come back. We hope our future research can help to introduce some improvements, for example, in the enrollment, the commercial procedures that can be applicable not only to new students, but also to all the student body. That's all.
So I'm going to give you some context on where we did these studies. This is the School of Languages, where we have over 8,000 students each semester. We teach and assess conforming to European standards, where there are 5 skills. We have had to deal with these skills, both with technological and methodological challenges, to be able to do this fully online. So over time we've done this with writing and reading, then also listening, but the ones that we have to crack now are the speaking ones, both oral production in a presentation like this one, or in conversation, speaking interaction. How did we do this? Well, we joined forces with European partners in the Speak Ups project, where we developed tools and activities to facilitate speaking conversation between students in distant geographical locations. And in doing this, we turned the School of Languages here in the UOC into our own laboratory of computer-assisted language learning, looking at the needs, designing, implementing, and studying. So in this presentation, we are looking at 4 examples of studies that we did in this context, looking at task design from different approaches and frameworks. So the first one, with affective factors, we looked at the anxiety that students in the School of Languages were experiencing when engaging in tasks with native speakers of English in Ireland. And we discovered, using the willingness to communicate model, that there were elements in the tasks that we could change in order to reduce anxiety, and that we could also change the order in which we were presenting these tasks to students. In a different task, we looked at a descriptive study where we interviewed teachers and instructional designers and students, and realized that after a few semesters using one of the SpeakUp's tools, the line block, teachers were not making full use of the potential of this tool. So we made changes to the teacher training program to raise awareness of this and make sure the teachers were using all the functionalities. We also discovered problems in the use of the tool by students and made changes to the student guides. In another study, we looked at elements in the interface of the Tandem tool and discovered that by changing certain elements, we could get more spontaneous conversation and more natural conversation using a conversation analysis framework. So we changed a few of these interface features. And finally, we are now in progress with a study where we're looking at learning games in presenting contents in different formats. And acknowledgement is due to the next slide, sorry, people behind these studies, so Frances Santanac and co-authors of these studies, Jackie Robbins, Joaquin Mure, Tony Mullen, Federico Borges, and Gisela Rangina. Thank you.
Why is time so important in our lives? What does time have to do with creativity? Now, tomorrow, in 10 years. We are living in a changing environments with complex problems and situations. However, the learning ways of acting are not useful anymore, so we need new, innovative and creative solutions. 8 institutions from 7 countries try to deal with these questions, so they study these questions from different points of view within an European project. These institutions put their creativity together to explore how ICT can enhance creative and effective collaborative learning from primary school to the elderly, using mobile technology and social media. This project also wants to provide formal, informal and non-formal education sectors with better understanding of how ICT can enhance creative ways of thinking and solving problems. Partners also want to know how future learning will be in the next 10 years. So every institution created a collaborative space depending on their expertise. At the end, we have 5 collaborative spaces in which time regulation and pressure was measured. What are the results related to time regulation? Time on task in terms of days and hours can vary greatly, as can vary the intensity of time spent on the task. Time on task spent in self-regulated and external regulated ways varied across each of the collaborative space, reflecting the diversity of preferences and learning contexts. Time on task spent on participants' familiarization with ICT tools can differ between different collaborative spaces as well as within the same collaborative space, and so different people's needs must be taken into account. Time pressure in groups can be felt by everybody, but in different extents within individuals, and that too much pressure would not benefit creative collaboration. Challenges do not lie at the level of the task and time available by individuals, but rather in finding ways of supporting learners in overcoming their lack of experience in self-regulation, plus supporting the diversity of individual learning rhythms. Thank you very much for your attention.